I can see a couple of people still coming in, and it's 4:30 here in Vienna, so I will start on time and say hello and welcome to everybody. I'm really happy to have you here for this PoolParty Release 5.5 webinar. The main goal of the webinar is to give you the overview of new features and new integrations we've done around the PoolParty Semantic Suite. A couple of the participants are already quite familiar with the product. A couple of others are rather new, so we'll try to achieve kind of a mixture between showing new stuff and explaining a little bit also what PoolParty is all about. I will mainly give this presentation based on a couple of demos, so it's not just slideware, it's a live demo on our preview server. So we are just finishing the and packaging up the software to deploy it at our customer base, and so I'll show you really the latest version of what we've got so far in the release 5.5. So it's still a release candidate, but it's ready to be shown off now. You might also be familiar that we have two other webinars. Actually, the one was already yesterday. So yesterday's webinar was a very technical deep dive. Also tomorrow you have another opportunity if you want. There's yet another technical deep dive, and today I really will rather stay on the perspective from the knowledge engineer and data engineer, not so much from the developer's perspective. So I will now start with a couple of basic information around the newest or latest features we've developed in this release. Again, we are still focused on all of the 9 core modules of our semantic software suite. So the middleware, which is represented in this image by the blue and the green layer. There were a few really, to my opinion, exciting new advanced features which have been integrated. So for instance, we'll show you in a second how the knowledge engineer is more and more benefiting from the machine learning components within PoolParty. You know, at least those who are familiar with the product, there is a taxonomy management environment which doesn't leave the knowledge engineer alone with manual interactions only. There is a module which is able to analyze text and derive potential extensions on the knowledge graph from there. And I will show you how that looks in the latest feature, in the latest release, how this feature looks in the latest release. Virtually any other of those modules have been improved and extended. For instance, we're now having the integration with Elasticsearch done. I think that's also a great opportunity for those organizations which already have started to use this great technology. And I will talk also a little bit about other integrations we've done. Amongst others, for instance, there is a brand new integration with SharePoint and Office 365 in place, and I also will give you a live demo of that. I see there is a question in the meantime, so I will try to get that. By the way, there is a chat. If you want, you can put there questions and also concerns if you have any. The handout, by the way, can be found in the download area of this software GoToWeb meeting, and it's also on our website and on SlideShare. So if you're interested in that, the session will be recorded, and there will be also a video on YouTube for those who would like to see that maybe afterwards. So if some of your colleagues cannot participate, it will be put into a follow-up email, the link, and you can circle it around if you want. Okay, getting back to the basic information. So the release 5.5 highlights can be summarized as following. First of all, the creation of taxonomies in a semi-automatic way has been further improved. I will give you a couple of impressions on that in a second. Secondly, we've been working on a so-called context-aware data modeling. For those who are familiar with the underlying SCOS model, it's now possible to make use of the in-scheme relation for that purpose. So you can state that several concepts are part of a certain context or not. And I will give you a little example based on the Brexit scenario we are currently observing. Then I will talk a little bit about the current Elasticsearch integration. We'll give you also a live demo of how the Graph Search server, the component of PoolParty Semantic Suite, which can integrate with, Solar and now Elasticsearch or other graph databases like StarDoc, Virtuoso, MarkLogic, or GraphDB. So all those 6 options are now available as the underlying search facility, so to speak. Then yet another, I think, nice feature for the knowledge engineer is the import assistant. The import assistant is dramatically improving the data quality of your knowledge engineering efforts. With ontology behind the knowledge engineering tasks, it's possible to formally validate if the resulting knowledge graph is consistent, if it's valid, if the quality is sufficient, if several rules you can set are met or not, and that's now available already at the time when importing taxonomies and ontologies. So I will show you how that looks like. It's a very nice user dialogue, which is helpful for many people out there suffering from sometimes really invalid taxonomies and other knowledge models. Then as another improvement, amongst others, is the enhanced user management, something which also is correlated to the enhanced user experience. You will see that we let's say improved quite a few user dialogues, and also as a technical improvement here, the user is now also a resource in the knowledge graph. It's no longer just the author in a meaning that there is maybe just a name attached to the work being done. It's really a resource in the triples. So you can now sparkle around user activities and do if interesting reports around the activities. The enhanced user experience is an overall redesign of the PoolParty graphical user interface in the backend. You will see in a second also on the front end, the Graph Search server has had some improvements experienced. And last but not least, I'd like to show you the brand new SharePoint and Office 365 integration. We are proud to work here together with our partner Soitron. So again, I try to figure out if there are questions. So I see one participant has raised his hand. That's one of these functions in the GoToWebinar. Again, I'd like to encourage you to put questions or messages into the chat box at the end of the webinar. In about 40 minutes or so, I will invite anybody of you to stay with me for a couple more minutes if there are any questions left. But now we'll proceed with the improvements of 5.5. So first thing, and that's also the subtitle of this webinar, combining machine learning and human intelligence. This is something I really would like to stress out because we see currently an upcoming trend towards cognitive computing platforms. So it's all around, and it makes a lot of sense because a lot of progress were made with machine learning, and several algorithms were developed to improve extracting meaning from any kind of digital assets. Actually, it's not restricted just to text. Obviously, it's also available more and more for videos, for images, and stuff like that. But still, what we currently experience is an ongoing conversation how those automatic algorithms, this artificial intelligence, can really understand the semantics behind for instance, documents which were written by human beings. So is that really possible? I mean, that's, an old discussion. But when looking at the practical situation, we're currently facing a more and more this kind of combining those two approaches. And I would say that with PoolParty, you have a good and reasonable environment to produce semantic knowledge graphs with, let's say, within a cost range, which, when combined with other systems, can benefit from each other. So the whole idea also is that it's not just a combination of a system like PoolParty with a cognitive computing platform, which makes sense, but also to make use of machine learning components within an environment like PoolParty, where the focus still remains on creation and maintenance of semantic knowledge graphs. So those who are familiar with PoolParty might have tried out already the corpus learning module, which is an integrated module within PoolParty. And you might have seen let's say, the ability to extract candidate terms, so to be able to find ways to extend the knowledge graph. But we've been working hard on improving that feature because we thought and always think that that's one of the most important features, to be able to create a high quality knowledge graph, a high quality taxonomy. One of the things that taxonomists might suffer from frequently is not knowing when being finished with its work. So is my knowledge graph already covering my knowledge domain or not? Is when I'm finished. And this is something this module can solve somehow. I will show you in a second. So we call that also corpus analysis, and this is how it looks like. And now we'll log into the PoolParty 5.5 server. So this is something you might be familiar with. A couple of changes have been made on the graphical user interface here. I will cover that a little bit later. Now stay focused on the corpus analysis, on the machine learning component, which helps you to create high quality taxonomies. So here I load an example taxonomy, which is the Regal Thesaurus. It covers stuff around renewable energy, as you can see up here, and energy efficiency and stuff like that. And so you can also look up some statistics and see there are around about 3,000 concepts. So, and that's the corpus learning module you might be familiar with already, but now I show you the exciting new features. So here I calculated a corpus which is about 300 documents large. You see here some statistics around extracted terms and concepts. And what you see here in the second tab, first of all, is so which of your concepts in your knowledge graph are frequently used. So that's already quite helpful. You see also maybe that synonyms are more frequently used than preferred labels and things like that. You can also detect things which were not found in the corpus. That's also interesting. It's an indicator for not extending maybe the graph into that direction. But even more powerful maybe is the feature to get suggestions for extracted terms. So you see here, those are the extracted terms not in the thesaurus yet, but obviously relevant to the knowledge domain. Otherwise, maybe the corpus is not, let's say, selected adequately. But still, you see here, there's lots of potential to extend the real thesaurus, like, for instance, maybe shale gaze. So I just click on that. That's now the result will be that this shale gaze is now being found in the candidate concepts stuff. And what you see here when clicking on that are two things. And those who are familiar with PoolParty will now find a new box. That's the thesaurus concepts. So what you can do now is you can start integrating your candidate term by just dragging and dropping that into these broader narrow relation boxes. So that means I just stated that shale gaze is kind of a sub-concept of, it's hard to pronounce it, methane. Methane. Sorry for that. So you also see there are other things you could extend on. Maybe you could put there shale as an alternative label, and so on. And then the system by that will again recalculate the thesaurus concept. So you could say, aha, that's maybe also part of photo smoke, or it could be an error of that. So that's an ongoing process. It's an interaction between a machine and a human being, the subject matter expert. And sooner or later, you might have, let's say, even a little hierarchy calculated here or set up here. And you see now you can integrate that. So that's because the green light pops up. It shows you, okay, now you can integrate this concept. And now if you go to the taxonomy itself, you will find shale gaze now as part of your taxonomy, which then later, of course, can be used for further processing stuff like text mining, entity extraction, and things like that. So that's the result, and I think quality is king at any point when maintaining knowledge graphs. And it's not just about structural quality, it's also about the content quality of your taxonomies, and that's something you can measure by comparing the taxonomy to the corpus. And I think that's maybe quite helpful. There's a question. So one of the participants is asking whether do you have statistics on the number of related broader and narrow terms / concepts, etc., that may help with selecting which machine learn algorithms would be more appropriate. Wow, that's a interesting question, honestly. And yes, I mean, the basis of all those calculations is, again, a graph. So we store all the statistics around the concepts, its relatedness to other concepts and stuff in another knowledge graph. By the way, PoolParty, in the meantime, any project covers many different graphs. So there's a history graph, there is of course, the taxonomy graph itself, there is the quality graph, etc. And one other graph is the graph which describes the relatedness between concepts and terms and its occurrences in a corpus. And there was actually always a way to fetch the data out from the database by a Sparkle query. So there is quite a good way to use the co-occurring information to extract concepts if even not being found in a document. but now we even integrated some parts of that into our RESTful API. So you can fetch these statistics you're asking for via the REST API. That's an extension of the API. I'm not focusing in this webinar too much on the extensions on the API. I'd like to encourage you to maybe look up for the other 2 webinars on that. But I'd like to discuss that with you. Actually, that sounds interesting because, of course, on a meta level, it's interesting, yeah, to decide which machine learning algorithm would be most appropriate in that case. Makes sense. Okay, so this was a little introduction into this first feature. Next one is the context-aware data modeling. So what does that mean? First of all, there's a little example, just to give you a quick overview. So let's assume we have certain concepts in our taxonomy. So here, in that case, I started to create 2 contexts. So there is a geographical one, which is just the British Isles, no politics at all. So that's really just geography. There's Great Britain, there's England, there's London, etc., etc. And then we talk about politics. And still, I mean, for instance, Ireland is not part of the European Union. For instance, but still, it makes sense to put it into this hierarchy because the political entities, Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, are part of Ireland. So those are obviously part of the European Union, but not Ireland itself. In a geographical sense, of course, Ireland is part of this concept scheme. And then it becomes even more complex if you want to state that, for instance, London is still in the hierarchy, of course, of England, Great Britain, and United Kingdom, but you would like to say, well, United Kingdom, Great Britain, and England after Brexit most probably is no longer part of the European Union, but it might be London. I mean, at least it was discussed, so it doesn't matter here in this sense, but just to give you an example, so you see this concept will still be part of this context, or is in this context, but not the broader ones. And there are lots of situations in our different domains we are talking here about, in which such a way to model this kind of contextualization can now be expressed by this new feature. So I will give you a live example. Just a screenshot here. We're talking here about the so-called in-scheme relation, and you can do a lot of settings here if you want. And before I come to the next point, I will give you a live example. So I will just load a little project, maybe my favorite places. And I just started with some metadata here, sites I like. There's a concept scheme like maybe cities. And then there is another one which is about sites themselves. And now I could start introducing a new top concept or category like towers. I could put there maybe European cities as a top concept in this concept scheme. Then further down, I put here the Eiffel Tower, and on the other, into the other concept, I could put Paris and so on. So, and of course, I can relate those. And now, what's frequently actually hard to maintain within a simple SCOS tree is to state that the European cities are actually not part of this concept scheme. It's rather a node in the graph just to bring in some structure. And that becomes even more sophisticated if I now want to introduce a custom scheme. So I prepared one custom scheme, a geo scheme, which is very simple. There's, for instance, a class of spatial things, which have certain relation types and properties. And now I want to state that all those things here in my cities concept scheme are places or geospatial things. So first of all, you have to select this scheme that's stated here. So I activate my geo scheme here. I now propagate that class alongside the hierarchy. I say, okay, all of those things should become spatial things. Now you see the class has been attached to Paris, but it should not be attached to European cities. That's just not a spatial thing. That's a category of that. So what I first have to do is I have to exclude that from my scheme actually. So when going to European cities, the first thing I have to fetch actually, first thing I have to do is to activate in scheme. That's the first thing. Otherwise, it does not work. So there is the setting in my advanced menu. I enable this COS in scheme facility, and now I get a new property. So you will see here, first of all of them are not in scheme. So what I can do next is to do that automatically. I can say, okay, add cost in scheme relations to all concepts. So that's quite straightforward. So now anything is in scheme again, and I just want to remove this one. So right, there is now a new relation, which means, okay, in which concept schemes is that? And I just remove that. Now you see it's deactivated, therefore it's a little bit a different color. Now it's still the active node, but you see it's not that orange, and if you click away, you see it's now gray. But unfortunately, it's still a spatial thing. Yeah, I just don't want to have it classified such, because then I can attach such attributes. I cannot attach an altitude to a class of or a category of things. I would like to do that only with Paris, maybe. So what I have to do now is to I have the ability to use cost in scheme relations for custom class reasoning. So I will now enable that. And now what happened is it just figured out, okay, that's not in scheme, therefore I should not use the class. And now I'm already there, what I wanted to state. I'm now in the position that this spatial thing has been attached to Paris, but not to the category. If I put there another one like London, you will see it's first of all not in scheme, but of course I can put that in scheme and say, okay, this is part of cities, and now it's also classified as a spatial thing, and so on and so forth. So like always, you have higher expressiveness now to state things in your knowledge domain. Therefore, it's a bit more of work to be done when done manually. But still, of course, there are lots of use cases for that. And just keep in mind with PoolParty, it's not necessarily anything done manually. There are lots of ways to create knowledge graphs semi-automatically or automatically. And one of the preconditions for that, of course, is a rich API to push data from other data sources into PoolParty. And of course, there's also an API available for all the in-scheme activities you would like to start around your knowledge graph. So that's this was, I would say, quite a sophisticated next step towards more expressiveness around costs and custom schemes and ontologies. And now another part of the features I want to mention is the integration with Elasticsearch and Stardock. So please keep in mind there are at the moment 6 options to integrate with a graph database or a NoSQL database or search engine out of the box. We have done several other integrations with commercial vendors in the space of enterprise search. With the graph databases, also other integrations have been done also with non-RDF graph databases, but those are the ones we are supporting for our customers, and which can be part of the Semantic Integrator bundle. You remember there's also this way to do data transformation from different types of sources via the PoolParty Unified Views component to transform data into RDF and put that mainly into the graph databases. And then on top of that, you can do data analytics and semantic search as 2 examples of resulting applications. I just log in now into our Elasticsearch version of the Graph Search server. So this is more or less the standard out-of-the-box user interface. So there were just a couple of documents being put into this store. You can now filter out. It's quite easy, of course, and straightforward. There's a little search basket. You can search for stuff here and get a classified autocomplete, and of course there's the admin interface, which is you see here connected to Elasticsearch, and so on. So this is based on the Graph Search API. I don't want to go into details here, but again, going back to this little image here with Elasticsearch, which can now be used also as as an alternative to Solr in general. When PoolParty core components also have Solr built in, like the PoolParty extractor. You can now remove Solr completely if you like, and instead of that use Elasticsearch. And Elasticsearch can also be used now as a base technology for the Graph Search server. Also, I want to mention again that when using a graph database instead of Solr Elasticsearch, you can do a bit more than usually with a search engine. For instance, there's a little example around analytics across documents. You can combine your search results in that case with some metrics around that and statistics around that. You can visualize that, and therefore it becomes more and more actually a analytics tool and a data integration tool. So this is just an example which I can of course explain in a bit more detail if interesting for you in another session. So that's based on a graph database in that case, not on Elasticsearch, just to give you an idea of the difference here. Okay, so that was the Elastic integration. And I'd like to mention that we are now able also to provide StarDoc as the backend if you're interested in a graph search or a graph database solution, which can shipped as a bundle in the PoolParty Semantic integrator. So to sum that up, the PoolParty extractor and PoolParty Desoro server and the integrator can now be based either on Solr or on Elasticsearch. Also, the clustering for the extractor can be now based on Elastic. The semantic search facility I just showed you can be done either on Solr, Elastic, or any other graph database. And there can be also now with quite low effort and integration of PoolParty in other, let's say, with other integration points can be done on Elasticsearch. Okay, so that was the new part of the let's say semantic integrator, and also the way to make use of NoSQL databases. Coming back to the knowledge engineering module, the import assistant. The import assistant is something which helps knowledge engineers to keep an eye on the quality of the resulting knowledge graphs. Many of our customers have experienced issues when importing RDF into PoolParty. In many cases, it was because of some, let's say, inconsistencies and some data which was not valid, really. Other cases, of course, I always have to admit, it can also be partly, those issues can be partly be based on some restrictions you would find with PoolParty. But lots of those issues are now clarified. So you will see the import assistant is something really helpful. It's an interactive dialogue. It can also be used for the Excel import. Many of our customers import data from Excel sheets. And the import validator really helps to identify issues with that. But more complicated, of course, is when importing RDF. Okay, so how does that work? I'll show you an example. And I just I create another project, a very simple one, and call it import taxonomy, and put their language, put their user group, and create a project. And now I'm importing, first of all, some RDF. First of all, have prepared some stuff here, maybe this one. It can be turtle, it can be N3, whatever, serialization. And as you can see here, by the way, when just one graph is imported, then the system assumes that it's about the concept graph. So you can also import several graphs, for instance, the history graph. But in that case, it's the concept graph. Obviously, you want to import. And now the import assistant is going to do several checks and will display issues found in that way. So it's a kind of an interactive report. So you can, for instance, you see there's plenty of checks. For instance, disjoint classes, is that found? Disjoint property domains, hierarchical consistencies, and so on. You can click on any of those. You can also deactivate the tooltips if you don't want to like them anymore. So the tooltips are now gone. I will activate them once again. And any of those can be looked at. So for instance, correct domain and range for cost properties. So you see here again, what is this check about? It verifies if the domain and range restrictions defined in this cost recommendation are met in the imported data. It will give you also visual representation of the problems. You can repair each of them separately by just clicking here, or you can also resolve all of them if you like. So you can, in that case, I resolve all of them instantly, or no empty labels. I can here enter preferred labels and to repair that. Of course, I cannot do a bulk repair on that, or I do that maybe later, and so on. And then you've got a couple of options. Either for whatever reason you want to interrupt this work and say, no, I don't want to work on that anymore, maybe in an hour or so. And now we are, of course, in the state of sort of an inconsistency, because if somebody else starts working on this imported graph, then of course there might be some other issues that could occur. So you can recheck that again if you like. And you can also, of course, cancel the import, or you can export it and do it later from the exported file, or you just store the repaired data. So if you do that, you see there's lots of stuff being found. It's not possible, yeah. But let's do another example. I have to close that project. It's now, of course, corrupt. I should not have imported that. It was completely still inconsistent. That's exactly what most of you have seen when doing such an activity without validation. Import taxonomy number 2. And then I'll show you how that can look like when you do it successfully. So I will now import another file. For instance, one of our customers is the Geological Survey. They create taxonomies around geology. You can download from their linked open data portal. There are not many issues found. You can see here just this one. I can, it's about missing inverse relations. I can repair all of them if I like. Now you see it's perfect, and I can import the repaired data now. And I do that in that case. And what I get is a valid taxonomy. I can again, of course, do a quality check on that, and you will see there's no issues now being found anymore. So this is really about quality management in taxonomy management and knowledge graph management in general. Another feature which might be helpful when working on terminologies and translations of concepts and labels might be the terminology importer. So it might happen that terminology management is separately done from the taxonomy management, and there's lots of potential, I would say, to combine those two workflows. So what could become or what could happen is that maybe that's the output or the export of an existing terminology tool. So there's maybe some translation management in place, and you've got these translations, and now you would like to synchronize that or keep it in sync with your existing taxonomy. So let's do this little example. I will open again the Regal Thesaurus. And let's take a look on that maybe. First of all, bioenergy, or let's take a look on full cells, which in German is this label here, Brennstoffzelle. So if I go to that, full cells, I will see there is no German label actually. Actually, I have also to activate German first on the graphical user interface, but still there is no, you see there's a synonym, but there's no preferred label. So also with hydropower, Wasserenergie, or Tesla motors, it's just not in the Thesaurus. Tesla you would not find. So it's not in sync with your taxonomy. So now I'm going to import that. So therefore there's a tool that's called the Terminology Import Assistant. You just upload the corresponding Excel sheet. Then you have to set the reference language. So what is the reference language? In that case, it's English, and all the others are translations. And now the analysis starts. And here are the cases you can see. So there's, for instance, that's a matching. So those ones are just the matching. So that's fine. I can make sure, bioenergy, it's all there. Okay, great. Now the mismatches are, there's no Tesla motors yet in the taxonomy. The missing translations would be those ones. Inconsistencies and missing labels you would not find in that case. But let's see what you can do now. You could, for instance, start to integrate Tesla motors. Let's say I put it under full cells, and now I can create that, and it should be now in the area of full cells, or just when looking up here, you will find Tesla motors, and so on and so forth. So you can do that, of course, again and again, and you can still keep the workflow separated. The terminology managers work in their already existing translation management environment, and the taxonomists work with PoolParty, but still you can do the synchronization from time to time and benefit from each other. So that's the brand new terminology importer. And then two other improvements will now follow. They are strongly correlated to what you see, how you work with PoolParty. So I think you have already seen the enhanced user experience, at least those who have been working with PoolParty for quite a while. Let's take a look on the user management. So what's new here? First of all, it's a technical improvement. So when looking at the triples, you see now that there's a DC creator linked to the user, and any user now is a resource in the graph. And that brings up a lot of opportunities for administrators and other roles in the system to find out about, okay, which activities in the knowledge graph have been set by which user, and so on and so forth. And from a user interface perspective, that's the settings menu, which is now attached to the user. So you can also set up a full name now. That was not possible before. You can set also as a super administrator new passwords if somebody of your colleagues has forgotten about it. Setting the roles, etc., of course, was already in place. You can store the user interface language here. per user, also the autocomplete language and the preferred languages, and also which COS view a user prefers is now stored per user. It was usually in a cookie, and now there are no cookies anymore, which is also maybe a progress. So that was the enhanced user management. So we moved again from strings to things. Users are now resources. And enhanced user experience, there are a couple of things. I think you've seen, for instance, the bar up here is it's leaner than it was before. It's just one row. The search has been integrated up there. I hope nobody of you will miss the dark blue colors we had before. It's now just a PoolParty blue anymore. There is also a nice application or app, so to speak, app menu here. You can quickly access, for instance, now the visualization front end or the PoolParty browser or the graph search and so on. So let's take a look on the graph search. If configured, at least you can now. That's still the old shortcut from here. You can access that. So that's this graph search facility to do some tests around the reference corpus. And the same thing now can be accessed via the shortcut, but it's not there yet. Well, that might be a little problem or issue until we release next week. Okay. So there are a couple of questions. First question, how are taxonomy categories tripled in PoolParty, which is the new, or refers to the new context-aware feature. So how are taxonomy categories tripled in PoolParty? Let's take a look on that. I just load my favorite places. And the European cities, which I think you refer to as a taxonomy category, are tripled like that. You will see there is no in-scheme relation. It's still, of course, a top concept of the concept scheme. And it has got narrow London and Paris. Of course, it has a label and stuff. But the in-scheme relation is missing because it's not in this scheme. London should be in scheme. Here we go. So that's the corresponding triple. I hope that makes sense to you. And then there's a second question in the meantime, or a third actually. Can Thai API calls also be monitored by users? I'm not sure what's meant by that. Sorry. Okay. Can the API calls also be monitored by users? Okay. Wow, that's a tricky question. Honestly, I have to admit, I have to ask back to the technical team. We can bring it up in our tomorrow's webinar. I mean, you can assume that any API call, like a read, a write call, like okay, insert new label, right, as an API call, will of course store the user which has triggered that. So yes, I mean this is of course clear. You can do that if that was your question. So activities via the API when producing some data, that will be stored in as a triple. If there was a read, for instance, you mean the extractor, if it is called by an API. Well, extractor, the PoolParty extractor, you have to be authenticated, of course. Otherwise, you cannot do any extraction calls, so that the system, of course, knows or could log, if interesting for the client, which API calls were made by which user. That's a scenario we support. But that was always or already in place in many former releases and versions. That's not new. So, you know, any API call has to be done by an authenticated user. Okay, I hope that made a little bit clearer what you have been asking. So now I come to the final enhancement. So it's about 50 minutes now, the webinar. And I think that would take maybe 5 minutes more or so. And then we come, if anybody of you is interested to the question session, I will hope somebody will stay with me in the room and we have a bit of a discussion or anything you would like to talk with me. Okay, so power tagging for SharePoint. First of all, it is a really frequently asked question. Does PoolParty support my SharePoint search facility, and can it keep kept in sync somehow with the term store, which is the built-in taxonomy tool in SharePoint, which of course does not support that many workflows like PoolParty does, but it's nicely integrated with SharePoint, and yes, it does, and and the good news, it does it even automatically, and I will show you now how that looks like in practice. So I'm now here in a demo SharePoint environment. First of all, I'm going to write a new document. So that's a typical scenario. Here are all my documents I've created so far. And I create a new one now, which is maybe a Word document. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Office 365 environment. It's a cloud-based environment. It can also be used in a hybrid scenario. So you could keep some documents in your SharePoint on-site, and others you might put into the cloud. So that's the cloud version of Word, also called Word Online. And I just put there some text now. I've, of course, prepared some stuff. So in that case, it's about climate change and global warming and stuff like that. And I just rename that document and call it climate change. And that's it. So I, of course, like always, I can now maybe put here some formats, whatever. Okay, after a while, I'm finished with my document. I go back to my overview. You see here now climate change has been added. And now you could configure the system that it should tag it in the background automatically. In that case, I said, no, I want to have some control over the tags. And I just activate my tagging dialog here. The tagging dialog is based in that case on the Regal thesaurus once again. So because it's in that case a domain specific thesaurus. And what I get now are those tags. So you see the blue ones are relevant enough that they are asserted automatically, and then I could decide whether I want to add some others, like maybe future climate change or water resources. I can do that quite easily with a click on the plus. If I'm not sure, I could look up what biodiversity means. In that case, it refers to the linked open data front end of the author of that taxonomy, which is Regal or REAP actually. So there's synonyms and definitions and a graphical interface, and I decide, yeah, that's fine. I will also put that in, and I could also look up some other stuff like maybe global warming or global carbon market, global climate, which is fine, and I add that as well. Or let me see, global carbon market. So here, that's the one. Global climate is here. It was already there, so it was not added another time. So it's really a consistent tagging facility. It makes sure that also all the synonyms and stuff will be, of course, fetched and asserted to the corresponding documents. So that's I think quite a nice progress compared to the out-of-the-box SharePoint solution, Office 365. And of course, now we would like to have a better search on top of that. So the first low-hanging fruit for that is you just click on one of those filters here, and you get immediately the other documents which are tagged by that. So that's a very quick search. But here I go now to the power search. And the power search is something you can use for several purposes. First of all, I fetch the domain and I say, well, I'm interested in global warming maybe. And what now happens, it will also fetch stuff which is not global warming in its, let's say, first preferred label, but also the synonyms like climate change. That would be one of those. So I say, yeah, climate change. That's interesting. And I get first of all a little box here, which is fetched from the knowledge graph directly. It's a description there. There is, you see the synonyms and the more general stuff and so on. Then in the middle bar or column, you would get documents. And that's one thing which is really helpful. You get all the tags attached to that. So I can now filter out only those which are, there's quite a lot of stuff. You see here 371. And I want to get only those which are also talking about emissions in the context of climate change. And I get now only 17 results. And again, all of them are tagged, and that's really helpful because you get immediately an overview of what this document is really all about. So this is more in the area of carbon finance. That's about carbon credits, carbon offsets, and so on. And I could do that, of course, recursively. I can also use this info box to further drill down and say, or go up maybe one level in its meaning, like climate knowledge could be also interesting in this context. So here I can also configure an image. I could configure any other attribute around my my concept I'm interested in. So it's a true concept-based search based on a knowledge graph, and it helps the user to find quite precisely only documents and also knowledge and facts around the search concepts what the user is interested in. So that's addressing the new power tagging of SharePoint. So a couple of screenshots here. I've just shown you the dialog. Here you can also use the taxonomy itself, visualize that. If you're familiar with the knowledge domain, you can fetch tags from there as well if you like. So that's the quick filtering by tags, and that's the power search, including the info box or the context box, which is an entity-centric view on your documents. And then you can do some configurations around that, like which facets should be used to do a faceted search, and so on. So, and last but not least, and that's very important, with this kind of architecture, semantics is no longer stored within the content silo. In that case, SharePoint, it's living outside in its own semantic layer. And you can do the same thing, of course, with any other repository, your own content management system, and generate out of that architecture an integrated view over all of your content repositories. So I think the elevator pitch I already made. That's just some written facts around that. And so I now come to an end. Actually, it's around about an hour I've been talking, and I hope it was quite helpful. I hope I also covered the interest of rather new people to this PoolParty Semantic Suite, maybe also to those who have been working with it so far, and I hope you have seen that with 5.5 there will be again some very helpful new features for your work with PoolParty and for the integration of PoolParty into your systems. And I will now finish the webinar, and we'll close the official part of this session. And I would like to encourage you to stay with me for a couple of minutes and ask questions. I can also open up the microphone for those of you who have a question or raise the hand. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. And let's keep in touch. And I say goodbye. Bye-bye.